Welcome to another episode of my podcast, We Are Never Truly Alone. I am Spirit Tiffany Rice, your favorite spirit medium. And I have one of my very good friends on, Erica Lee, who is also a medium.
Yes.
So if you guys don't know what a medium is, we are people that communicate with loved ones and spirits. So we communicate with friends, family, pets come through too. We have no control of who comes through or for how long.
Right.
So we're probably going to be doing a little bit of readings. Oh, what if we do like live on air readings with people?
That would be fun.
We could do that too. But
yes.
first, okay.
Yes,
So,
absolutely. So I guess we'll just get into it. We're both very spontaneous, as obviously you can tell. So.
Yes. Okay. So.
I love the idea of on-air readings. I'm totally good with that.
This is going to be a fun one. All right.
I know.
We're like, la, 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 la.
Yes.
So, Erica, when did you know? Because this is one of my top questions that I get from people. People always want to know when I knew I was a spirit medium. So what's your story?
Well, that's a great question. And Tiff, I totally agree. That's probably the number one question that I get asked as well. So I knew when I was a small child, but only because a series of events. So my father was an orphan, quote unquote. He always called himself. So I thought he was like a Charles Dickens orphan, but it wasn't quite like that.
Why do I find that funny?
Well, he'd be like, oh, I was an orphan. And then, you hear these stories about orphans, but really his parents died when he was a kid. Both of them. It was pretty tragic. So they both passed when he was a kid. So obviously it's very unfortunate, but what was fortunate was that they had an aunt who lived nearby. Most of their family lived in Ireland. So they were in Boston, and their aunt...
Wait, were you born in Ireland?
No, I was born here.
Okay.
But when my grandparents died, they were living here, and then my aunt moved in to raise the kids so that they didn't get split up by, like, the church or the state. And so anyway, fast forward, 20, 30 years to when I was born. And then when I was, 4 or 5 years old, I started seeing my dead grandparents, and my parents thought it was, my imaginary friend. But then I started saying things that, in the medium world, we often refer to as evidential, but that just means pieces of information that are known to be accurate. So for example, yes, validation. Yes. I like that word better. So for example, at one point I said to my dad, oh, grandma's here and she has the rolling pin with the water in it. Now, unfortunately, I did not inherit her cooking skills. Not that I'm a bad cook, but she was a professional chef, not quite at that level. But apparently there are rolling pins that you put water in.
My mom had one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
so
my mom
exactly.
baked all the time.
Yes,
so
So
I know exactly what you're talking about.
She had one, and I guess my dad kept it.
And you were 4 years old at the time.
Yes, exactly.
Wow.
Exactly.
Okay.
So
right.
when I said oh, she has the rolling pin with the water in it, my dad had taken that rolling pin from her house when my parents bought their house, brought it to the new house, hid it in the attic somewhere. Not hid it, but my mother didn't even know he had this, and he took it from their house. So when I had said that, they were like, oh, something weird is going on. And then my aunt, my grand aunt, who moved in when his parents died, he told her this. He was like, oh, well, Erica's saying these things that I think maybe something's happening. And she was like, oh, don't worry, that's normal. And he was like, I don't know if it's normal, but apparently it runs in that side of the family. And that aunt,
Irish side of the family.
Yes. It's very prevalent.
Intuitive.
Yeah,
yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So that's kind of when it started. And then when I was in kindergarten, I told this girl that her grandmother was I'm dating myself, but when I was in kindergarten, glowworms were a thing, right? So that probably, and also when you're in kindergarten, you think everything's normal. Whatever you grow up with at home, that's normal. You don't realize other people have different lives. So I saw this girl after the Christmas break, and I was like, oh, your grandma's so happy that you got your glowworm and you love it. And she started to cry because her grandmother got her this glowworm for Christmas.
Oh my gosh.
But died unexpectedly before Christmas. So at that point, my family was like, kid, whatever you're doing, you got to stop because can't be getting in trouble at school.
But it was so natural for you.
Right,
so for
exactly.
you, you're just I'm just going on what I know.
Thinking. Exactly. Yeah. So that's kind of how it started.
And then when did you become a professional medium?
Well, I started giving readings to the public in 1999. But at that time, I was kind of still, I didn't really see it as a career. I don't know why. Maybe because I don't know, my parents when I was growing up were kind of two minds about it, even though they're from the same culture, the same religion. You know, my father was a lot more open initially than my dad, maybe because his parents were passed. I don't know.
Right.
You know, and because it runs on his side of the family, which he didn't know, but maybe they just were more open. You know, and my mom at that time, I mean, now she's totally into it, one of my biggest fans, but she was very kind of against it and afraid of it and thought like, oh, we can't, you know, keep up with the Joneses with a kid that's talking to dead people, you know, so
Right.
I kind of internalized that it was like weird, which I mean, it is weird, but
Yeah.
I didn't think of it as a gift. I thought of it as like a weird thing. So I try to like suppress it, but as I'm sure you know, because I'm curious to hear how this story is for you too, it would keep coming back.
Mine's so boring. You guys don't want to hear.
Can't wait to hear it.
So boring. No, I'm kidding.
I try to keep it away, kept coming back. I started doing it professionally in my late teens, but I didn't really go full time until about like 12 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but it just kind of evolved organically because I didn't really see it as a career,
funny.
but it just, like, I just, with word of mouth, I kept getting more and more people. And I thought, well, if this is something that is natural for me, that I enjoy, and it's so rewarding for people that get so much healing out of it, it just seemed like a no-brainer.
And you were actually on a show.
I was on the Travel Channel, which was so much fun, and it was really cool. And what was really cool about it, which is so interesting, talk about like BTS behind the scenes, is so I went to this location here in Eastern Mass in Norwood, and to like investigate this haunted theater. But no one told me anything ahead of time. I didn't even know the location. I knew I was going to be on the show. I didn't know where it was going to be, even up until filming. So they gave me an address to drive to, which I did.
Mm-hmm.
And then a production assistant got in and drove me somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So it was totally sight unseen, which of course is better in many ways.
Right,
and I like
right,
that,
yeah.
you know. And then they just took all this footage and followed me around with cameras. And then they put it into an episode. So it was very cool. It was a lot of fun. And it was also like interesting to see how, like, when you see these shows with mediums, whether it's like the Long Island medium or, you know, back in the day, like 20 years ago, crossing over,
Right.
that everything was completely like spontaneous, like present, like on the fly, genuine. It was, but they selected the content that they wanted for the episode. So it was really kind of interesting to see like what they chose to put in. And of course, like as a medium, I don't remember.
I know exactly what
you know what I
mean.
mean?
Yes,
like I don't
yes.
even remember half of.
You're like,
what,
wait, what?
right? Exactly.
Yeah.
So it was an awesome experience.
So, and then did it go from anywhere from that, or like did
Well,
that
so-
open doorways for you after being on the show?
A little bit. So I will say I was approached by MTV to do a show. And then they decided to like do a different concept, which wasn't even related to mediums or spirits or ghosts or anything like that. I think it was like something about auto mechanics. I mean, it was like they decided to
Right.
do totally different concepts. But that was kind of cool that then after the Travel Channel show, I was approached for an MTV show.
Yep.
So that was kind of exciting.
And it's funny because I've gotten approached many times with so many different producers too,
Yes,
and nothing
yeah.
has ever panned out.
Yeah,
Which
and
is
that happens a
okay,
lot
yeah.
too. And I always take for granted that maybe it wasn't meant to be because like the MTV show didn't pan out. I was filmed back in like 2012 for I think it was like Sci-Fi or like for a different show, a
Right.
different pilot, but also that didn't
Again.
end up going. That ended up on the cutting room floor.
Right.
So you just don't know,
Right.
you know.
You
Yeah.
never know. You never know. I don't know if her
wonder if,
camera's off.
Oh, did my live video end? It looks like it might have.
It might have ended.
Oh, that's interesting. I wonder. I can start over though. Let's see.
Oh yeah. Let's see if. So this is, guys, as you know, as you're listening to this, this is a live podcast. So we have like all our phones going. We have it recording on our Instagram. You can follow Erica at Erica Lee Medium on Instagram. I'm Spirit Tiff on Instagram. We are Never Truly Alone podcast.
Hi.
Hi. And is that? I don't have my glasses on.
All right.
We're trying to put everything here. Let me. I might have to invite you.
Yes, you might. Or
Is it on my phone?
it's not letting me.
Oh, why? Oh, it's probably. Is it still going on my phone? It's not even going on my phone. Okay. Hold, please. Hold, please. Here we go. Okay, so this is what I'm going to do. Again, guys, thanks for your patience. Filming live. Filming live. I'm just going to... Oh, here we go. I'm going to ask you to join.
Sounds good.
Fight. I just heard that song in my head. This is so random. But when the moon hits your eye like a big piece of pie.
Oh.
I don't know if that makes sense for you.
Yes, that may be.
Sylvia Designs.
Yay, Sylvia, how are you?
Okay.
And Amanda, Mystical Gabblings, Ariane.
Okay, good.
Yay,
We're back on. We're back in business. You guys, we are doing a live of my podcast, We Are Never Truly Alone. Please like, share, and follow. 2 mediums, 1 podcast. And let's just see how this goes. I just have to figure out how to turn it around.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, here we go. I'm so bad at this stuff, guys.
Me too, as you can tell. Obviously, our skills lie elsewhere,
Yeah.
right?
Our skills are... All right. So, and it's just so funny because I ended up meeting Erica, guys. So, little fun fact.
Yeah.
I met Erica a few years ago, right before the pandemic.
Yes.
And it was in Sudbury.
Right. And I believe we were both being interviewed for the Boston Globe. I think.
Which is a local newspaper here.
Yeah.
And so I met... I think you knew people because it was like your area, right? Didn't you know?
Yes, yeah, I did. And I did know people that were there.
Right.
And then, you and I had never met before, so I was excited to meet you. And I think there might have been some other people that I didn't know. But again, it was like February of 2020, so it was literally like within weeks
before
of
the
shutdown.
Yes.
So I definitely remember.
So, guys, if you are enjoying this, make sure you like, share, comment. Make sure you give Erica a follow, Erica Lee Medium here on Instagram. Are you on TikTok?
I am.
What are you on TikTok? Because I have my TikTok fam here.
I'm on TikTok as Erica Lee Medium also. So that's my handle on all platforms.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Like, share, follow. We're going to be doing some readings in 1 second. But first, if we have questions, do we have any questions? Actually, you guys can ask your questions live here.
Yeah.
No questions. No questions.
No questions
all right.
so far.
No questions so far.
Oh, I keep cutting out.
I know. I don't know.
Stay
well, you know what,
going.
too? Like
2
here.
mediums and Mercury retrograde.
And we're in
Kind of
this
a
like
trifecta.
aluminum little sunroom, which is awful for service. So,
Oh, yeah.
okay. So I have a question for you.
Yes.
What is the craziest experience you've had as a medium? Like, do you have a pinpoint of like a crazy reading that just kind of like goes to the back of your mind where you're like, oh my gosh, or like, have you worked at any missing person cases? Like anything that's been like this, whoa, aha moment, so to speak, anything like that?
Well, there's so many things. It gives me the chills even that you asked that. So I'm sure you can probably relate and agree. Like, it's very hard to narrow it down. I did work on missing persons cases. I've retired from that. But I did work for the LAPD on missing persons cases. Yes, yeah.
Did you have to fly out there?
I didn't, which it's kind of interesting, right? So I feel like I didn't have to fly to LA. But that just proves like the remoteness of everything, right?
We're all energy. At the end of the day, we are all energy.
Exactly. And because Spirit's talking to us from anywhere, like anywhere we are, anywhere they are.
Yep.
So that's kind of cool. I didn't even have to go to LA, and I was able to help on a missing persons case, a couple of them with the LAPD. Yeah, that's very interesting. It's great to get the feeling like you're helping someone. But those are kind of heavy.
Did they end up finding the person, or?
Well, the person, unfortunately, had passed to spirit, but they were able to uncover details that, like, led them to, like, they were able to find evidence that led to, like, the discovery and et cetera, et cetera.
Wow.
So it's really unfortunate, obviously, it goes without saying, but it's great to be able to feel like you're able to help in some way. Another thing that's really interesting, I always encourage all my students to just give what they're getting or say whatever comes, because I had this one reading once and the information was so random and like outside and wild that I was like, well, I just have to say this because it's just so crazy. And what it was I said to this woman how there was a man coming through from spirit, and he was talking about some chicken with something, the chicken that had a woman's name, that like the throat was cut open because the chicken was choking. I mean, I know that it's ridiculous, right?
Right.
But this client said, oh, yes, my grandfather was a thoracic surgeon that had chickens. And his favorite chicken, he named after his wife, my grandmother.
Stop
and the chicken choked on something, so he operated on the chicken, saved its life.
Wow.
Now, that's, like, I can't even imagine, like, what's the likelihood of that? So just, if you're studying to be a medium, or you are a medium, or even if you're just connecting with your own loved ones, you could be getting the craziest, most outside things that you don't think will apply. You might shock yourself because they could apply.
What happened to that one? Is it my phone?
Oh, maybe.
It literally was like, I wish we had
us. You're right. I know. Too bad. Yeah, right? Well, that's it. Maybe there'll be a spirit there in the other. Who knows?
Maybe. I know.
But you know what else is so interesting is all these like other little synchronicities that are happening. Like I was connecting with a client the other day. She actually has a house in Ireland that's close to the area where my family lives in Ireland. Well, half of my family, part of my family. And she's going to Ireland the same day that I'm going to Ireland in June. And just these things that are like patterns or synchronicities that are above and beyond our awareness.
Do you
really
find that happens to you a lot?
Yes,
like as a medium, same.
much,
Like I'm always seeing 1111, 222, 333. Like
absolutely.
It's uncanny how often I see it. And like
it is.
It's so funny because I see all these reels on TikTok and things where it's like, Cardinal, that's my dad. That's, and I'll be the first one to say, pay attention to all these signs. But at the same time, like, I feel like because we are always on this higher vibration, highly connected, I feel like that's why it's so, like, validating, because we are getting these messages. Because I talk to so many people and they're like, I don't get anything. And I'm like, well, because you're having a reading now, it's going to open you up more.
And that happens so much to people. Like so many clients, they'll get a reading and then they'll reach out and they're like, oh, I feel like I'm seeing all these signs. So even just getting a reading.
Right, exactly. It opens you up.
Yes,
absolutely. Totally. So, and if we have any questions, please feel free to ask too. Like, I don't know if we have any questions.
A question from Katie Dickinson. How do you know what the signs mean? That's actually a great question. And in my opinion, if there's ever a sign, I always tell people, clients, students, friends, family, if there's a sign and you don't know what it means or who it's from, ask, because then they'll find a way to give you another sign that will clarify more. What's your recommendation on that?
So, how do we know what the signs mean?
Yes.
So I find a lot of times with numbers, numbers are usually divinely connected to angels. Like the patterns of, like I mentioned, 1111, 222, 333, all of that.
Absolutely.
My dad will always show me his birth date.
Oh, cool.
So I'll look at the clock and I'm like, oh, 1106. Or I'll look at a license plate, 1106. So when it's a number in that way and it's connected to a loved one in spirit, I find like that's a huge sign.
Yes,
Cardinals
definitely.
are known. Cardinals, butterflies carry that transformation vibe.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
Even if it's not connected to a loved one, if you notice butterflies a lot, that could be helping you as far as your transformation journey goes with whatever you're transforming,
absolutely.
Then there's also blue jays. There's pennies and dimes. Again, all primarily connected to loved ones in spirit. But I remember, and I was just telling my TikTok family this message, but it was a couple months ago, I was talking to my dad in spirit, and I was driving along, and I'm like, Dad, help me. Somebody help me. I I need a sign, right?
Yes.
So I pulled up to a stop sign and I look at the road and it was called Love Lane. And I'm like, well, he got the topic right.
Right.
'Cause-
Yeah. At least you know he's paying attention.
Yeah, he knew. I was like,
Right.
okay, now
Yeah.
what? Where, Dad?
Yes.
Where? But I didn't see anybody at that stop sign. But I saw the street sign, so I'm just going to take
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
And then sometimes it changes, too.
Yeah, totally.
A week ago, I was going through something with my mom, and I was talking to my dad about it. And I'm like, Dad, just let me know. And I was driving, and I was expecting to see the 1106 on the license plate because it's just 1106, right? So I had my eyes peeled, and I'm like, I don't see the 1106. And then all of a sudden, I looked, and a car drove past me, and the license plate said Dad. And I'm like, okay, he's
See,
getting the message.
Yes,
So-
and he mixed it up on you, so they'll do that too.
Yes. So be open, no matter what. Just be open. Another song like that, my dad. So here's what I'm going to say, guys. If you're looking for messages from your loved ones in spirit, they can come in plentiful. It doesn't have to be one particular thing.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
I have this core memory of my dad and I driving along. He was driving me to get these 10 cents lollipops at this country store
Oh,
down the street,
yes.
which now no longer exists. But I just remember us driving along and the Belinda Carlisle song, Heaven is a Place on Earth, that came out in like 1987, was on the radio. And he's like, oh, I like this song. For whatever reason, that little memory has remained in my mind forever.
Yeah.
And so now whenever I hear that song, I think of my dad. And so that song will come on at the most random times. And it's not like I'm listening to a yacht rock station where the chances of me hearing the song is going to be
right.
very popular.
Absolutely.
It's always like even one of my friends has this workout class. And so she puts all these remixes on, and I was taking one of her classes, and that song came on. I'm like, why would that song be in
'cause
her
you don't
playlist?
hear that
We have
song
Bad
very
Bunny
much.
next to Belinda Carlisle. Where does that
Right.
come into the playlist of this workout?
Right, yes.
So
it's not even the genre.
it's that divine intervention.
Exactly,
Divine timing, divine
exactly.
intervention. So pay attention, guys, because there are signs everywhere.
It's so true. There really are. And Tiff, do you think your dad showed you Love Lane to say that you're on the right track?
Well, I think he definitely was like, okay, I guess you're going to have to call in the big guns. And I think
Right,
now he's trying
yeah.
to help
Pull
me
strings
because
and
that,
help you, yeah.
when I was not on the right track.
Yes.
So I think he's just also acknowledging that love is all around me.
Yes, I
You
love
know?
that. I love that. And just to build on what Tiff said, and I totally agree, is that there are certain signs. Like, so for my Aunt May, the same aunt who was kind of coaching me to be a medium that I ran in her family, my dad's aunt, she always sends me ladybugs. But she
Yes,
can
that's
come
another
through in
one.
different ways, too. Yeah, that's another one, like ladybugs, dragonflies, butterflies, cardinals. But she'll also come through in different ways. And my grandfather, on the same side of the family, he's what I call one of my frequent flyers, meaning like, one of the people in spirit that comes through the most. And I was at a gallery of one of my friends to support them, and I ended up getting a reading. And my grandfather said that, I'm stubborn and I don't listen. I don't
Shocking,
know. I'm
shocking. But you're
Not
a
like it
Libra.
runs in the
I'm
family.
shocked.
Right,
I'm actually shocked because
right.
you're a Libra. So
Right,
Libras tend to
usually
be
we're
people
pretty
pleasers.
open. Right, that's true.
Yes.
Well, so he said, like, I got to listen to my dead people more because I don't talk to them. I don't listen to them, which is probably true. And then I have to get out in nature more. And I love nature. I love the beach. So when I got this message, I was like, okay, I'm going to make a concerted effort to listen more, talk more to my people in spirit, and get in nature more. So about a week later, I was walking on the beach. And it's just this small private beach on the North Shore. Nobody was there except me. I think it was in March. So it's not like beach season is what? Just July and August in Massachusetts?
Right.
So I looked up at the sky and I was like, see, Grandpa, like I'm listening. And I said that. And then I almost tripped over a car transmission on the beach.
What?
So this small private beach in Marblehead, I almost tripped over a car transmission. And my grandfather owned an auto mechanic business.
Okay.
So, and what, like I've
So
never
this is
seen
making
car
sense.
parts. Yeah,
Yes,
exactly. I've never seen
yes.
car parts on a beach before or since.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. Even to me as a medium, it's crazy the ways they'll find a car.
Yes,
through.
I love that.
Yes.
It's like kind of that aha moment.
Yes,
you know?
exactly. And that confirmation,
Like,
know.
with you guys watching, does anybody else, what kind of signs do you guys get? Or do you have a story like that? Is there a question?
Someone's wondering what's going to happen on May 3rd. It came up in your
Oh, that's so interesting.
Oh, May 3rd.
I keep getting May 4th as a significant date, so I wonder if that's
Well, May 3rd is a
I wonder if-
Saturday.
oh, it
May
is.
4th,
Okay, I was gonna say
right?
Friday
No,
or
is it
Saturday.
May
It's definitely
4th?
the weekend.
Huh. What's happening on May 3rd? You know what I will say is Mercury's been in retrograde up until April 25th.
Yes,
So I feel like there's a
okay.
little bit of a shadow period. So
Right.
May 3rd is like a great opportunity for new beginnings.
Absolutely.
I keep hearing the words
Yes,
new beginnings,
yes,
new
absolutely.
beginnings.
It's definitely like a refreshing time, and there may be some information that comes to light that you're not expecting, but that will really be liberating for you.
Yes, release and
Yes.
welcome the new beginnings.
Yes, absolutely.
So that's what we would say.
yeah.
The May 3rd. May 3rd. And guys, on TikTok, if you're not following us, Spirit Tiff, your favorite spirit medium, Erica Lee Medium
Erica
on
Lee
TikTok
Medium,
and
yes.
Instagram. And we are filming on the Instagram of We Are Never Truly Alone podcast. So,
Yeah.
yes, this is a live podcast. So I figured need to include the TikTok fam. All right.
Yes, I love
And
it.
if there's any other questions, let me know.
Absolutely.
Nope.
Oh, yeah. Okay, Mystical Dabblings on Instagram. Share dragonflies, crows, ravens, and rabbits. I love that you said
Ooh.
rabbits because, I mean, I'm obsessed. I have a rabbit. But also rabbits have been coming up a lot in my readings.
They've been coming up in my oracle card readings.
Oh, really?
So whenever I pull the rabbit, it's now is your lucky time.
Oh, I love
So,
that.
and it's all about
Okay, I love
spring. So
that.
again,
Yes.
to back up the new
Rebirth.
beginnings, rebirth,
Yes.
all of that good stuff. And
Yeah.
snake is also shedding the skin, shedding
Yes,
away what
I
no
love
longer.
snakes,
right?
Yeah, transformation.
yes.
Yeah, and healing. Yeah, because the caduceus, you know, the medical symbol is
Yes.
snakes. So
Yep.
yes, healing transformation.
I
Yeah.
love it. One book, I don't know if you ever had the opportunity to read it.
Yeah.
Actually, I think you and I talked about this.
Yeah,
One of my favorites, but I recommend this book for everybody that's listening, especially when you want to connect to energy and like understand it a little bit better, is Becoming Supernatural.
Oh yes, you know what? That gives me the chills because I was actually just thinking about that book last week, and I haven't read it yet, but I'm excited.
Oh, you have
to. Read
to.
it.
You have to because
Yeah.
he talks about that too.
Oh,
The
that's
the
awesome.
medical, yeah, all of that stuff. So
Oh,
it's
cool.
so good.
I can't wait to read it. I've heard so many great things about Joe Dispenza, who I
Yep.
think is the
Yes,
author of that
yes.
book, and just like the parts of his work that I've interacted with, like I really like, because of course I'm all about the energy. Some books that I like too. One of them is by Michael Singer. It's called The Untethered Soul, and
Oh, I've heard of that. I haven't
Yes.
read it yet though.
I love how it talks about, like, one of the quotes that I remember, or I'm probably paraphrasing, but it's like when you're seeing something, whether it's a candle or it could be anything, it's like who's seeing that and like what's behind, like, and who's seeing the person seeing it. It just like encourages you to like consider the great beyond and go deeper. And just having an awareness of that and an openness to it is just, I think, immeasurable, because not only does that connect you with spirit, but it's also like a vehicle or a portal to being able to like leverage the energy to create things in your life. So it's definitely a great book for, you know, connecting at a deeper level, the untethered soul.
And I think this is why everybody's here, because as a collective, we all want to connect. Everybody
Yes.
that's watching, we all want to
Yes.
connect on a deeper level.
Absolutely.
You know, and I think that like there are people that want to do it and there's a lot of people that don't, and that's okay.
Right. Yes, totally.
We just choose to go a little deeper and figure our stuff out.
Right. Absolutely.
know?
Absolutely.
But I get asked that all the time. So many people want to know what books are good and what should we
Yeah.
do, and so that's why
yeah, those
I
are
like to
great.
just
I love
bring that
those.
up. But I mean,
Yeah.
how do you feel like living your life as a spirit medium? You know, do you find that it's sometimes it can be difficult in relationships? And I mean like relationships with everybody, not just partnerships. But like,
Yes.
do you find like for me, I understand that, because for me, I feel like I go right into like the black and white of it all
Yeah.
and go
yeah.
right into like, especially when I have conversations with friends,
Mm-hmm.
it's funny because I will go right with my intuitive thought on like, oh, what I think they should do and so forth.
Right.
And then they'll always say to me, because I say it so candidly, they're like, no, we want you to be psychic now. And I'm like, I am psychic. I am.
Right,
Like,
because
this
it's,
is the
it's
stuff.
operating
Yes.
all the time.
It's
really,
operating all the
It really is.
freaking time. And
It's true.
And it's hard for some people because
Yeah.
like I said, I talk to them very candidly, like, oh, so no, like if I was to tell you something, I would say, oh no, Erica, well, I definitely feel like you're going to hear from this person on Tuesday. I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and it's because intuitively that's what I'm picking up. Like,
right. Exactly.
Save the date, Tuesday.
Right. Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
But it's funny because people that we grew up with or people that we've been friends with for so long, they're like, no, can you just like tune in? And I'm like, I'm already in.
Right.
I'm already in.
Well, I'm so glad you mentioned that, Tiff, because I feel, not to say like, that's the difference between being professional. It's not really about being professional. I will say this. People tend to have this concept that it's more black and white than it is. Basically, like, you'd be like, oh, Erica, you know, you'll hear from so-and-so on Tuesday. I mean, of course, talking to me, who lives the same life, I get it.
Right.
But, like, if I was to say to a friend, like, oh, you'll hear from so-and-so on Tuesday, they'll be like, okay, well, like, what's your psychic input? And it's like, well, that is the psychic
that
input.
is it, yeah.
And, you know, I understand to an extent why it's so black and white to people that don't do it as a lifestyle, because there are so many people that talk to me that they do have like uncanny experiences where they like miraculously came out of a really horrific car accident without even a scratch, or like there's so many things where people have had these uncanny experiences,
right?
But it's so distinct and so like there's 3 over the course of their life, so it's very black and white to most people. So I understand why they think it's black and white with us. But what I've realized is like there is no, when you live this life and you do it full time, there is no way to make it black and white. Like I could even be working psychically and I don't even know it, you know? Like I've had so many people, like my cousin the other day, I happened to text her and she was like, oh, you texted me right when I was thinking of you. I mean, these things that happen all the time, but I don't know that she's thinking of me when I do it. So it's just, it's operating in the background.
Well, it's that
24/7.
synchronicity. Yeah, exactly. It's constantly, or like blast from the past, you know?
Yes.
So many times I will think of someone and then it's like, oh my gosh, I haven't talked to them in 10 years. And they just started like interacting with me on social media or what have you.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So it's really funny how this stuff kind of happens, you know, and we don't even think about it. And again, guys, if you have questions, please feel free to ask.
Yeah, ask away.
Is that because again, I don't have my glasses on, but I see something like long. What is that?
Oh, everybody in my wellness. Yay. My work wife, sister from another mister.
Oh, okay. I'm like, I didn't know if that was a question because I cannot see it. No glasses. No glasses. No words.
Oh, Tiff, let me ask you a question on the same line of thinking. You know how we were saying how like you just said something that just happened to me, like somebody that I haven't like had any interaction with in many, many years. I was thinking about while I was driving and then they sent me a message on social media, something like this. So that was very psychic of you to mention something that just happened to me. But one thing that's so fascinating is, what do you find helps you distinguish when there's a synchronicity coming at you and when it's your psychic abilities operating behind the scenes?
I take it as it comes. So if it's something that, like, say if somebody comes back around that I haven't talked to in a while and all of a sudden they I'm like, oh, that's cool. I was actually kind of psychic with myself.
Right.
You know,
yes,
and so I'm going to take it as like a win. Like,
right.
Okay,
absolutely. Yeah, no, you're right. That's a great point.
Yeah. Like, okay. So it's just me learning to trust my abilities, which, you know, I've been doing this for over 10 years full time as well. So you would think like, okay, well, aren't you ready to trust your abilities? But we're human, right? So we have to play that human card.
Exactly.
And sometimes our ego gets in the way, you know?
That's true too. That's why I love that Tiff and I are always giving each other hits and readings, because we can of course get hits and readings for ourselves. But again, like with the human element, like you were saying, like sometimes if I get good information, I'll call it, or like something that I would want to hear, I'm like, yeah, is my subconscious telling me that because that's what I want to hear? But then on the other hand, if something comes up that's like maybe not what I want to hear, it's like, well, is that really the intuitive input, or is that like my fears or traumas?
Well, this is
trying to surface. So that's why it's great to have.
It's so good to have psychic friends.
Yes,
get
absolutely.
yourself a psychic friend.
Yes, exactly. Yes, yeah.
You know, because sometimes our little egos get in the way of things.
True.
You know,
true.
so I think it can be tough because it's like, well, is that because that's what I want, or is that a gut
because
feeling,
what I fear, or
because we're always. I tell people that learn with me, like, listen to what your body's telling you. You know, I was recently on a trip and I was like, how long would it take me to walk home from this state? You know, like I knew that I just felt like I shouldn't be there.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And it was almost like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And like, all I could think about was like just coming home and like
yeah.
just being home and being surrounded by people and pets that love me unconditionally.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
it was, luckily I got out when I did.
Good.
But it was just me having to really listen to like my body and what my body was telling me.
Absolutely.
And sometimes it can be so hard because the other way, when we want something so bad, right? Like it's easier
Yes,
when like things
yeah.
don't feel good. But like when
Yeah.
things feel good, you're like, okay, is it because I really want them to feel good? Or is this
It's
my
true.
intuition? Yeah.
It's true. I'm so glad you said that because it's so fascinating and so true that like when things feel really good, one would think you would just like lean into that with abandon because you want good things.
Right.
But sometimes it's almost easier to hold yourself back when things feel good.
Right.
You
Exactly.
know?
Because you're like, what is this?
Yes, absolutely. And that makes sense because when you feel bad about something, like, okay,
Right.
it's obvious. You
Right.
know?
Stan, do you want to come up? Stanley wants to join us.
I love fur babies.
What? Oh, a question.
How do I know if I have physic abilities?
Psychic abilities.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So we are all intuitive to a certain
Yes,
degree,
it's
right?
true.
What would you say,
Absolutely.
Stan? Do you think we're all intuitive to a certain degree? I love you so much, my handsome boy. But anyways, yes. So I feel like we all have abilities.
I
So
totally
one
agree.
thing that I would recommend, try with meditation a little bit. If you can start to meditate, even if it's like 5 minutes a day, I think
Yeah.
that's good. But then also,
Absolutely.
if you have a deck of playing cards, right? Like you
Yeah.
can go to
Yeah.
Ocean State Job Lot, or actually, depending on where you live, there's a lot of places that sell playing cards that are like 99 cents. They're pretty inexpensive.
Yeah.
Grab yourself a deck of cards and just start shuffling the cards. Pick a card. You can even ask yourself like, okay, I need a red card. Don't look at them, but just pick it. And then, or just pick a card blindly and say, okay, is this card red? Is this card black? What suit is this card? Can you show me, is there a number on the card? Start asking questions without looking at the card, but just going with what your first thought is. So that's just a little tip and tool that I would,
Yes,
a
yeah.
tip and tool that I would
totally-
recommend,
Yeah, that's great.
But to quiet your mind, try to do like a meditation. You don't have to commit to an hour-long meditation, but even if you start like with at least 5 minutes a day, and that could just be playing calming music. And the reason why that's good to play calming music in the background if you find it hard to sit still, but when you play that type of music, your brain, your cells, everything in your being will connect to the calmness of it. It's the same experience we get when we say go to the gym and we play like heavy,
Yes,
hard, heavy
yeah.
metal or something like
Yeah,
that
or
to
like
get us pumped
trance
up,
or
right?
EDM or hip hop. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
like
Yeah,
it's the same
absolutely.
thing. So you can utilize music as a form to help relax you as well.
Yes, absolutely. I
So-
couldn't agree more because I feel meditation does help quiet the monkey mind. But again, like listening to music, or I love binaural beats, or even a guided meditation, like that counts because sometimes, like, I have a very monkey mind, as they say.
Right.
Like, I have a very hyper overactive mind. And so if you listen to a guided meditation, that can help to capture the part of your mind that has a
Right.
hard time with stillness, and you still get the benefit of meditation. So I
Exactly.
totally recommend that. And I love like the deck of cards. I love, Tiff, how you shared that because I think that's like a great tip because there's so many things in a deck of cards, right? Like you were saying, like the
Yes.
suit, the color, is it a core card, meaning like, queen or a knight? You can say like, if you're saying like, oh, I want to pick a red card. Is it hearts? Is it diamonds? I mean, there's so much you can do with that, and that, makes it really easy. The other thing I always recommend is like you can pick times and just decide that you're going to be psychic. Now, I'm sure a lot of people
I
are
like
like,
that.
yeah, right? Yeah, it's like,
Okay, now
people
I'm
are like,
psychic.
okay,
Game
what
on.
does that even mean? Right, exactly.
Right.
But what I mean when I say that is, again, this is something that helps with the monkey mind, is if you can do something arbitrary as like a signal to your subconscious mind, like, okay, now what I call it, like now I'm working, okay, because I'm a working medium, but for you it could be anything. I have a colleague that like, she always wears a watch or a bracelet, and then she'll take it off when she goes to give a reading, and that's like her
I've seen
signal.
that. I've seen
Yes,
that.
like people do that. I don't have something specific that I do every time, but I know that for people that are training or wanting to develop, it's helpful because what you can do is say if you're going to try this example, right? You can say like, okay, I'm going to decide to be psychic for 20 minutes on May 3rd or on Tuesday, whatever. And then just write down or record into your voice notes whatever you get. And then keep a record of it, because then you can go back and see like what validated where.
Ooh.
And the more you do this, the more accurate you'll get, and the more you'll be able to notice patterns. And your psychic, both mediumistically and psychically, you can have like a vocabulary, like you can have representational items, right? So for example, through doing this exercise, you might learn that like, for example, you might see a candle visually, and that might mean to you someone's grandmother passed, or it could be not that at all, but like that's something that like you'll build a frame of reference and like a vocabulary or your own spirit dictionary. So
yes, I call them signposts. You will.
Yeah, I love that. Exactly.
like,
Signposts. Yeah.
and that's what it is. Something that would represent something to me in my database might not represent the same to you.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
As
exactly.
a medium.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally. Kind of like, we're speaking English, or if we were speaking German, like a door is a door in any language, but there's still that language vehicle to deliver the message.
Exactly.
Totally.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Any other questions? No.
A. Nathaniel, who's very powerful. So interesting.
Okay. And it's okay if there's a no question.
Yeah, that's totally fine if there's no questions. Obviously, Tiffany and I can just find things to
we're
chat
just
about forever.
Chatting. I have a question. So when I go live on TikTok, I'm always I love pulling cards.
Yes,
right? So people will ask, is this spirit led? And like I can do readings on Instagram Live and all that stuff, like connecting to spirit. I can do that.
Yeah.
TikTok Live, I can do that. But I love pulling cards. But here's what I'll say about the cards, because I just had this conversation today, actually. So when we talk about pulling cards, usually people will use the tarot deck or an oracle deck or angel cards. Those seem to be the big ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in my readings, unless somebody asks for it, I don't usually use the decks, because I feel like the decks, it's almost like a cheat sheet.
Yes,
right.
I totally
So
get
like
that.
straight up,
Yeah.
I'll use my mediumship abilities, or if somebody wants an intuitive led reading, I'll do that. But the decks, like the cards, are cheat sheets. They're like, okay, we're gonna just kind of pull this and see where it goes. And that's why I like doing them on the lives, but I don't generally do them, like, especially in a mediumship reading.
Oh,
I don't usually do
yeah. No, I agree with you.
cards.
Like if I have a private read or any kind, whether it's a twofer or whatever, I don't use cards either. And I feel like cards are really, I don't want to use the term mixed blessing, because that almost has like a negative connotation.
Right.
But I totally agree. So I feel that cards are a great tool when you're developing. And not to say that they're not a great tool even at our level, because they certainly can be. But I think the thing of it is, when you're working full time for many years without the cards, you can access accurate information that the card might not lead you to.
Right.
So the card can guide things. However, you don't want it to guide things to be more general, if you will.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And I mean, it's interesting to use the cards to kind of augment what you're getting. I mean, sometimes I'll use, it's so funny. I mean, I don't know if you guys will laugh, but I laugh. I have this app on my phone that's like a tarot app I probably downloaded like 15 years ago, and I'll still like use that app. And then I'm like, Erica, what are you even doing? But again, that's why I have Tiff. I have my psychic friends hotline, so that we can help each other.
I'm always pulling cards for myself.
Yeah,
I'm like,
and they're,
oh, okay. And it's always like the otter spirit, where it's like, you were never truly alone. I'm like, nice try.
Yes,
it's called
right.
We Are Never
Exactly.
Truly Alone.
I know.
Yes.
Yeah, so I totally agree. Like, I don't use cards professionally, and I feel it's too limited for me. Like, I'm not saying cards are limiting, but at this point, for me, it's too limiting for me.
Yeah, they're fun.
Yeah,
But they're a cheat sheet.
yes,
That's how I view them. And that's why,
totally.
like, a lot of people love the cards, and so that's why when I go on lives, I'll use the cards, because people it's a natural gravitator.
It's very quick. It's a natural gravitator. It's so true. And there are people I've noticed that like they feel comfortable with cards, but if you're not using cards, they're not as comfortable for whatever reason.
Right.
So it's great in those cases. I do have a friend who's a brilliant medium, but she'll also use cards almost as like a validation. So like, if you ask her about a job or something, she'll give you her like direct input without any tools. And then if you have an additional question or if you want more, she might pull some cards and then see if that, a lot of times, like I had a reading with her recently and the cards sort of validated what she had already told me. So they definitely serve a lot of purposes and are great to use. And I think they are great for lives because when it's very quick and you're doing a lot of readings, it can get you right to the point.
So I think that's why a lot of content creators use that.
Absolutely. Yeah, it makes sense.
Absolutely. Any others? And if you guys can like and share and all that stuff, if people have been liking and sharing.
Let's see. I have dreams. Loved ones come to me, tell me things.
Oh, wow.
Up at times not remembering. Any recommendations how to remember?
Keep a pen and paper by your bed.
Absolutely.
You definitely want to do that because it's so important. A lot of times the difference between a dream and a visit is that you will remember. However, it's funny because I just recalled a dream I had last night and it wasn't, nobody had passed in the dream, but it was just somebody else that I knew.
Yeah.
Anyways, but I was trying to recall the dream and I was like, okay, so wait, what were they wearing? What did they say? What happened? And it's just so patchy. So if you keep a pen and paper by your bed, that will be good because it's right when you wake up. It's really fresh and you can write down everything that you recall in the dream. And even if some things don't make sense right away, I'd say just give it a little bit because I wouldn't be surprised that like wait a day or two and then you can start to piece it together. And it kind of goes back to when we are being intuitive with ourselves. Like Erica said, I mentioned signposts and she says it's a psychic dictionary. Like we will start seeing things duplicate themselves until we actually can put it like a meaning behind it.
Yes, totally. I totally agree. And I'm someone who, well, when I say I don't dream, I understand, I know that, what the science or the knowledge is that everyone dreams. It's just whether you remember it or not. But I totally agree. I think often you might not remember every detail, but just like the quality almost or the texture of the dream is a bit different when it's a visit. And one thing, it's so fascinating actually, because where I said I don't dream, so I have a great friend, you would love her. Actually, one of my favorite oracle decks, because we were just talking about that, is the Oracle of Pluto, and she created this deck. But what's really interesting is I had this dream that my grandmother, the same one with the rolling pin, like she came to me in the dream and it was outside her house where I grew up, and she was telling me about this friend and me and the friend going to Ireland. And so then like we were chatting on like IG DMs, and I happened to mention how like I had this dream and my grandma was in it, and she was talking about me like taking you to Ireland, and lo and behold, it turns out that her grandmother is from only a few towns away.
Oh wow!
From where my grandmother's from in Ireland, and one of the surnames in her family is the same of one of the surnames in my family. So it's likely, I mean, it may be like 5 generations ago, but it's actually more likely than not that we're related somewhere. So
that's
how
so
fascinating,
cool.
right?
Yes,
and then I had this dream with my I wouldn't have, if it wasn't for that dream, who knows when or if we would have pieced that together.
Right.
So it's
That's
really,
so cool.
it's kind of cool. Yeah.
Any other questions? None?
I would say too, so I'm only saying this because of recent developments in my life. I used to be like, I almost call it like a neurotic writer, because I heard Freud once said, if you're always writing, you're neurotic, and I'm definitely neurotic, so I didn't have to hear that anyway. But I used to like write all the time, like whether it was grocery lists or like memory, it could be anything. Well, lately I just haven't wanted to write at all. I've been kind of averse to it. So what I've been doing is like leaving myself voice notes and voice memos. And one way that's been super helpful is because I get a lot of ideas in the car while driving, but I couldn't ever write them down. So now I do voice notes. So the only reason I'm mentioning that is if you're someone who like you wake up from a dream, but you're not much of a writer, or you don't have a pen and paper handy. In this day and age, most of us have our phone pretty much surgically attached. So you can always like, leave yourself a recording. And anytime, like whether it's a dream or whether you see a sign or a synchronicity or anything that you might feel or sense could be psychic or mediumistic, make a record of it, whether it's a voice note or, as Tiff was saying, write it down, because then that will help you like go back and verify.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, guys. I'm seeing, like, again, without the glasses, I'm still seeing people. Thanks for
Oh,
tuning in. Again,
Yes, Fabiana, it's so great to see so many people here.
I love it. You have much better eyesight than me,
Great
Erica.
idea about the voice notes. Maybe that'll be faster for me before I forget the dream. Well, that's another thing that's great about voice notes. I feel the same way. It is faster. One thing that's interesting, though, is when I do write dreams down, as somebody who I say I don't dream because I never remember them, is that I find sometimes when I'm writing, more details come back to me. Have you ever noticed that?
Yes, because it's almost like a trigger. where you're
Yes,
like,
yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So
Yeah.
it does. I see that too.
Yeah.
And again, it's always good to have. Oh, are they asking who's snoring? You know, I always get that. By the way,
That's so funny.
you guys can hear the snoring. That is Olive May.
She's so adorable.
She had me up every single hour on the hour last night. So I will be joining you too, girlfriend, in a second.
So funny.
Just one of those nights.
Does she fall asleep a lot when you're working or when you're doing
Yes, she's
podcasts?
always snoring. And then everybody always asks to see Stanley Beans, who I don't know if you guys can
He's so
get a
cute.
glimpse or like a close up of his face.
I know.
But
I love
Stanley
dogs
Beans,
so much.
Whenever I'm in the other room doing a TikTok live, he jumps up on the table and just crosses through like
Well, that's like what's
Yeah.
wild is animals are so tuned in. Like my rabbit, like I was mentioning rabbits before. Whenever I'm doing a reading, which most of my readings are online or over the phone, the vast majority, he's always around when I'm doing a reading. And if I'm in my home office and the door's closed and he's not in the office, he scratches the door. And then I know it's so funny. Like he wants to be in the energy because then once I did a reading and I was like, where's Humphrey? Like it was so weird that he wasn't there. But then I discovered he was directly under my chair.
oh my
So he
gosh.
was there. I
He
just
was
didn't
there. You
know.
didn't see.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like they crave it. Animals
do,
pick up
yeah.
on so much energy because that's
They
the other thing
do.
too. I'll get emails from people that say, you know, Tiff, I have a dog and nobody will be upstairs, but yet he'll stand at the base of the stairs and just look up. And I know he sees something. And I'm like, yes, he does. He sees your Uncle Pat, you know.
Yes. No, it's true. It's so true. They do pick up on everything.
Because animals don't have an ego.
Well, exactly.
they
You're
just
right.
run
They're
on
just
energy.
unconditional love
Yeah.
and energy.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
And
you know,
sometimes, like, we can miss them more than some people. I mean, that might sound bad to say, but because they have that unconditional love.
people will come to me just
You
to hear
know.
from their animals. And I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah, me too.
I love it. I love
me
it. Some of
too.
my videos that I put out on TikTok are just straight up
Like
animal readings. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yes. So animals do connect. And we do pick up on like the living animals too.
Oh, absolutely.
That's the psychic thing.
Yes,
So, like,
yeah.
guys, to answer a question about mediums, right? So,
Yeah.
mediums are people that can connect with your loved ones in spirit, but they also have psychic ability, which is
Yes.
being able to pick up and give clarity and intuitive thoughts on a situation at hand. Whereas if some people just identify as being psychic,
Right.
psychics don't necessarily have the mediumship ability. They might be
Yes.
highly intuitive, as again, you guys, we're all born with
Yes.
intuition.
Yes,
So we all can
absolutely.
utilize that. Just some of us are tuned in differently. So I always like to
Yes, it's
repeat
so
that
true.
because that's another question. Like the number one question I get is, how'd you know you were a medium?
Right. And
And
I want
then,
to hear your
yes.
story.
Yes. And then some people are like, wait,
Yeah.
what's a medium and what's a psychic? So that's why I say, like, depending
Yes.
on what you refer to, you know.
Yeah, totally. And you know, it's so fascinating because, well, I'm sure you've heard, it seems like a common phrase in like our industry is all mediums are psychic, but not all psychics are mediums.
Yes.
You know, and I've discovered
That's
that
what
to
it
be true.
is,
I
yes.
used to not believe that, but I think probably because I was a medium since early childhood. I don't know. People would say that. I know that was like the done thing and the said thing, but I didn't really get it.
Yep.
But then I met a highly successful, very public psychic who is definitely not a medium. And I don't mean that as like a drag, but when they were talking about mediumship, I was like, no. So it's definitely
Right.
true that like there is that distinction that all mediums are psychic, not all psychics are mediums. But again, like everybody has gifts, and I totally agree. It's like it's how much you choose to build it, how you interact with it. Like I have a good friend who has this gift of basically helping people with their fertility.
I've helped people with fertility too.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And so
Yep.
And I believe that she's psychic. And I mean, we all are. Like, my popular metaphor that I get away with using, because I'm a Bostonian, is that, like anything else, it exists on a spectrum, like
Right.
any other talent or gift, but then you can cultivate it. So, for example, like, and definitely everybody can find ways to connect with their own loved ones in spirit. So I always say, like, not everybody is going to be Tom Brady, but everybody can at least learn to throw a football in the backyard with
Right.
their kids, So, like, you can
I say that
definitely-
too. I always use
Yes,
soccer.
yeah.
I'm like, everybody knows or has an idea how to play soccer, but there's going to be
Yes.
some people that are going to be just
like David
killing
Beckham.
it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes,
It's-
exactly.
That's
So
how it is. Yeah.
That's how it is. That's how it is in life.
Right,
like
right.
dancing. Like, I can
Yeah.
dance, but I am definitely not.
like Dancing with the Stars.
Right. I'm definitely
Yeah.
not that. Even if I
Right.
tried so hard, I couldn't be. So
Right, exactly. And even if you think about, like, for soccer, like David Beckham or like Ronaldo or like Tom Brady, obviously they're talented to get to that level, but they also cultivate and discipline and like are mindful what they put in their bodies and how much they train. So
same as mediumship.
right, exactly.
Like, people will say, "Oh, just have some drinks and do readings." I'm like, I will not, because
Right.
that's lowering the vibration. And when you
Right,
do medium
exactly.
work, I'm just gonna flat out say it. When you do mediumship, I feel like takes more out of me than doing psychic.
Oh, definitely. I
Psychic,
couldn't
I'm
agree
like, oh,
more.
easy peasy, let's go.
Totally.
Mediumship, it's like a concentration. It's just being able to, like,
Right.
focus and really connect to what you're hearing at all times.
Yes, I couldn't
You
agree
know?
more.
And if you're drinking, or if you're doing anything that's going to jeopardize that clear
Yes.
connection, because I've heard it, like, even
Yeah.
starting into it, there were people that were like, "Oh, I'm so much better when I drink," and I'm like, "You're lowering your vibration. Like, how
Right.
how
what
does that work?"
Well, the
Yeah.
only reason, because I've heard that too, and I totally agree. Like when you're drinking or after you're drinking, or even with the hangover, like, it's draining. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, I grew up around alcohol, So not only does that make me the expert on alcohol, but I think when people say that, so I totally am the same. Like, I don't drink before readings, et cetera, same as you. But there are people that say, like, oh, I'm so much better when I'm drinking. And the only way that can make sense to me is if it's lowering their inhibitions. So
Oh, that's
it's
a good-
kind
yeah.
of like, I think it's like, they're not as afraid. Like, like if you have several drinks in you, you might, like, you're not as afraid to, like, chat up that hot person at the bar. Like,
Right.
You're probably more likely to say whatever you're getting. That's the best I can.
That's a good idea,
make
because
out of
when
it.
I do readings, again, everything's so black and white. Like,
Yeah.
I always say, it's not what you want to hear, it's what you need to hear.
Yes, that's true. It's so true.
So what are, because I'm sure we're running out of time here. Unless, are there any questions happening? No questions? Okay. Or any questions on your
Not
end,
that I
Erica?
can
Okay.
see. I don't see
I
any.
can't see anything because I
But
don't have my
it's
glasses
so great
on.
to. No. Hi, everyone.
But if you,
I see Sylvia. Sylvia, I kept hearing Nathaniel when connecting with AA Michael, and found out there is an AA Nathaniel. So researching him now as he's trying to connect.
so
that's
many
so cool
different
and
types of
exciting.
angels.
Yes,
So that's
yeah.
another thing too. When you're pulling angel cards, you're going to be getting angel names, and there's certain ones that, like,
Yeah.
of course, the most popular one is Archangel Michael,
Yes.
the protector of all angels, and there's, like,
Yes.
Archangel Raphael,
yeah.
Ariel. Yeah, I was gonna say Uriel.
Yeah,
Serafina. There's so many
So
different
many.
ones. So ultimately, like, it's just seeing what connects with you. And when I was on my journey of figuring out where I fit in spiritually, I took all the classes I could.
Oh, yeah.
And there were some classes where I got a lot, and there were some classes I didn't really get much, but it put me in the right direction of, like, okay, like, I know this is the profession for me. This is what I really
Yes,
want
yeah.
to do. I can't see myself doing anything else. I really
that's
can't.
so exciting. That's well,
Right.
yes, because we still have to hear. So, Tiffany, well, we still have some time. How did you know you were a medium?
I always had the sense of knowing.
Yes, right.
You know, I
yeah.
always had the sense of knowing. I was kind of the weird kid. I thought everybody knew what I knew. I didn't
Right.
realize that they
Yes,
didn't.
Yeah.
In high school, I'd be having conversations with people, and all of a sudden, like, I'd get people behind them talking, like, in my
Yes.
mind's eye, and I'm like, what? Like, I just have bad ADD. That's kind of what I thought.
Right,
And
yeah.
then fast forward, I became a Reiki master teacher. back in like
yes.
2008, and I was
Yeah.
like ready to go.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and it took me up until 2013
Yeah.
to really, because I was taking mediumship classes,
Right,
and
right.
and I
So,
knew
like,
like this is what I was meant to do. And it took me
Yeah.
getting laid off from my job and really focusing in
Yeah.
on doing this work full time. And I would do house parties all over, and it was all just similar to you. It was all
Yeah.
word of mouth.
right.
So I had so
yes,
much going
yeah.
on with word of mouth and getting back to me, and I had to make that decision. Like, all right, am I gonna stay in this situation, or am I gonna take this leap of faith? And I did, and I
Yes.
haven't looked
Ooh,
back
that gives me
since.
the chills.
So
Exactly, yeah.
I absolutely love it. I've now created this empire of a podcast and my candle line, jewelry
Yes.
line. I wrote a
love
book.
it.
I like I I love this little life of mine. Oh, that's a
Yes.
song on that was like trending last month on
Right.
TikTok.
Yes.
I think
love
I
it.
love this little life.
I love it.
I think
It
I
is a
love this
wild
little-
life,
yeah.
isn't it?
Anyways, okay, guys. So thank you for listening to us chit chat
Yeah,
about
for
being
joining
mediums.
us.
Erica, how can people find you?
So you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, email, my website,
But
TikTok. Erica Lee Medium is my handle on
You know,
everything.
she's like, I'm everywhere. Just find me.
yes,
yes.
exactly. So it's just Erica Lee Medium, and that's my handle for all the things.
And you guys know that I will be putting out this podcast, releasing it probably next Wednesday. We're Never Truly Alone podcast here on Instagram, also available on Apple, Spotify, YouTube. You can find me, Spirit Tiff, your favorite spirit medium, here on TikTok, Instagram. Remember, I only have one account. I'm not going to be sliding in your DMs.
Yes, that's so important. Absolutely.
So many scammers out there. Don't know why they want to be
Yeah.
us.
Totally.
Because they ain't us.
Exactly.
Just kidding.
I know. It's awful.
Ain't's not a word. That was like a big deal. Anyways, we want to thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys so much. And yeah, until next time,
Yeah.
we'll catch you on the next We're Never Truly Alone podcast.
Sounds good.